Ring, ding, ding, ding. You go,
Good evening and welcome to Revved Up and Relived on the Spirit of Motorsport TV. And do we have one hell of a show lined up for you this evening? I cannot wait to get it going. Before we do, I just want to remind you this is an interactive experience. So get involved in the chat. Send us whatever questions you have our way, and we'll do our very best to answer them. Also, just share, if there's anyone that you know that might enjoy the show this evening with the great Roy Moore and Barry Wood, please share it with your friends and get them involved in the conversation. Also, remember, we've done tons of shows now and they're all available on replay. So you can go back to our YouTube channel, press like, subscribe, and you can catch up with all of those shows and let us know how you get on. And again, once again, share your comments and share the love. So welcome this evening. We have the great Roy Moore and Barry Wood from their fantastic page on Facebook. If you're not a member already, what have you been doing? Mountain Memories page. They're coming and joining us on regular slots, hopefully in the not too distant future. We'll be sharing some incredible stories and their memories of the TT. And this evening, we're going to invite them into the studio as we discuss and remember the ladies of the TT. So, boys, welcome and back to the studio.
Evening, all.
Good evening.
Yeah, here, there, and everywhere, wherever you may be. Welcome from the Isle of Man. Been a reasonable sort of day today, but we're looking forward to it.
Well, we look sunburnt anyway.
Yeah,
Like we look very red. It's like we've been on the drink all day. But anyway, yeah.
Sun-kissed, I would say, Barry. Sun-kissed.
Something like that.
All right, boys. Well, welcome back. It's been we, our fans and our followers, bloody love having you on, and so do we as well. So we're glad that we've got you back on and we persuaded you to join us again for another hour. And we touched on what we could chat about this evening because you've got your incredible page, Mountain Memories, with some fantastic stories on there getting shared. And we wanted to try and think of a theme this evening. When I spoke to you, Roy, you touched on the ladies of the TT and how many amazing women there have been over the years that have got on 2 wheels, 3 wheels, etc. So we're going to delve into that.
Yeah, it's the thing. I haven't touched a woman for ages, so it's make a bit of a pleasant change. And I don't know about Barry, but he seems to be fiddling around here and everything.
That's in my life at the moment.
Yeah, he's interested in all the track races, so he's not too far away from. We won't go into that. But it was something that occurred over the weekend, and it caused a lot of interest. It caused a bit of commented, and we started off a list. I mean, obviously, solo riders. You think back to the initial start of it all and who was involved. But then there were a couple of sidecar competitors as well who got involved in what they call the Clips course. And I'd kind of foolishly put a title on the top of it about the ladies. And the first one I can ever remember, and Barry wouldn't because he probably wouldn't be about at the time, was Inga Stahl. And she had another name, Lafort, I think. And that would be round about 54, 55. Again, you can be when you get older, a couple of years out, but it doesn't really matter. You just know that she arrived on the island with a French driver called Jacques Drion. And they'd put the Clips course on for World Championship sidecar. So they were coming to get points. And they had a lot of competition, because the BMW boys, the Hillebrands and the Schneiders and the Knolls were all over here as well. But it was interesting because they stayed at the Nursery Hotel. And again, I was kept informed by the family connections about what was going on. But the Nursery Hotel was a kind of a a non-event really. It was like a little kind of house stuck in a forest up in Onken. Had a bowling green in front, but it became more famous later on when Honda in '59 arrived. But certainly Inga Stahl and Jack Drion would come out, no traffic lights at the Manx Arms, and it was a regular sight. I'd be, what, 8 or 9 years of age at that time, and they'd be watching, getting ready for the practice to start, and they would be heading down to take part in the practice. And again, through the power of the site, there was a cracking photograph that emerged from somebody where it showed them actually coming out
the gates.
The gates at the top.
I put that on. I don't know where that came from, but I didn't know they actually stayed there. That educated me. Interesting.
Well, but I knew about it, but I didn't think. I mean, photographs were hard to come by, and impromptu photographs like that were virtually non-existent. You know, you didn't have your phone and just go up and flick it and away you went. I mean, if you were wandering around the paddock with a Brownie 127 with a 24 or 12 exposure film inside it, which you had to get developed, well, then you weren't sure, you had to kind of make absolutely certain when you took a photograph that it was going to be worthwhile. But I didn't realize you'd put that one on, Barry. It took me by surprise, really, to be fair.
I don't know where it came from, but I actually said at the time, he's one for you, Roy. It's exactly your sort of thing, because that was where you were hanging around watching at that time as a young fella. And it was always as if he popped in for a pint in the nursery and come back out again.
Yeah.
I had no idea that he stayed there. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, they stayed at the nursery hotel. I think Nick Jeffries commented on that about it, and he was fully aware of it. And those gates, the actual shape and where it said nursery hotel, there was another entrance to it further down, but there are many stories in connection with that. But everybody used the top gate to get into the nursery hotel, and certainly them coming out. It was we were living in, I don't know whether we were up in Avondale Road at the time, which is the drag down to the Manx Arms. But certainly Jeff and Jack Cannell and my auntie Jessie, they from 49 were in and around Onken, and we were always up there.
So where was the nursery then with regards to the Manx Arms? Up by the Archibald Knox, is it?
Yeah, that was the site. Yeah, the actual was the Archibald Knox was built virtually in a viewing area where you viewed the nursery bends.
Right.
And just a bit further back was a kind of a very popular place, and it was a Castletown house, if my memory serves me right, and it served a very good pint of bitter, and the population of Onken would be either the Manxie or the nursery, and it was well run, very well run. Just part and parcel of TT history, really.
Brilliant. Well, we've got some great shots of Inga, actually. So she came in 54, didn't she? But she was the first lady female competitor to race in the TT. We got some great shots of her, this swinging lady.
Yeah. It didn't mean anything in those days, did it? You could be a bit careful now, but stunner. She was an absolute stunner. And I had two older brothers. I wasn't sexually active at the time, so I didn't know anything about things like that. But they were fully fascinated by this blonde. I think she was Swedish, wasn't she? Inga Stahl.
German she was, yeah.
Blonde and German and all that. Had all the attributes. When they apparently been scratching around with the Manx girls, this was a revelation when she arrived. And they weren't sniffing around, but they made sure they got plenty of views off her,
Something completely alien to the TT as well, to have a female competitor for the first time. Obviously was a big draw for male fans, I suppose, as well.
But were the manufacturers not too happy about it? Is that right? That's the rumour, that they weren't too happy about a female competitor.
Made the front page. Really kind of infiltration into a man's world. I think that's on the mountain. I think that's a set-up shot on the mountain. that to my mind is not the clips course which they were using there. Certainly, they had to kind of go through a lot of kind of torment really to get an entry with her doing it. Sad part about it was, I think the following year they were both killed. But certainly, if you look at Inga Stahl there, now, he was a really attractive person. And every shot you see of her, she had those massive goggles. I don't know whether they were special to her, but certainly Jack Treon has got a pair on there on the start line. But it was when you talk about memories, you can just go back to that. This is all new to Barry. You see, later on when you get different things, it'll be me that'll be kind of saying, well, I don't know too much about it. But all that, that's just been where they've been round, warming the bikes up, and then all down to the start line for a mass start into Parkfield Corner. That's not on the island, I wouldn't think. That's somewhere else.
That looks like Albi or Avis or something like that. That's a common circuit for the European road races.
Yeah, probably all world championship stuff. And they made a living out of it. I think they got backing from Watsonian sidecars. And Cyril Smith and Eric Oliver were all Watsonian men in those days. Eric Oliver was an absolute flyer, and then Cyril Smith, the most kind of unobvious world champion that you could ever imagine. You would think he was a drill teacher, and yet he was a very, very quick sidecar driver. We'd have to try and get, I know he's getting on a bit now, but he's still got a terrific memory. Stan Dibben. He's regular on the island. I don't know what age he is. He must be approaching
91, I think.
91 or 92. And he does little kind of things down the museum, and they are superb because he travelled on the continent with Oliver and Smith. I think he was in with, and the stories that they've got of the Continental Circus, as it was known, are just superb.
What kind of speed do you think that outfit would be getting with? So if we go back age, what kind of speed do you think they'd be achieving in that? Because there's nothing to it, is there, for her, protection-wise? There's nothing to it. It's crazy.
115, would you say?
Yeah, probably. There would be only a couple of places you would get maximum speed. You come out of the dip. You didn't come out of the dip at Governor's Bridge. You missed the dip out.
If they made a good job at Hilbury, they would get a decent run up there, but that would depend on the wind as well. If you'd either get the wind on the way up the Brandish or on the way up to the Craig. A 50's Max Norton, which is effectively 2 up, isn't it? There's 2 people on there. I would say around 150.
Yeah, you're not far away there, I would think. Yeah,
I guess.
I'd go along with that on top speed. But if you go around the Clips course, which I still regularly do to get my grandchild to sleep, we do a lap of the Clips course, and by that time she's usually well gone, especially with me doing the commentary. But you go from the 5.5 mile corner and all that. It's so narrow. You wouldn't believe how 2 outfits could even, kind of. They could think you'd wedge themselves in. But there was plenty of opportunity because when they came out onto the White Bridge and into Onken, the roads were quite standard. And then all the way up to Signpost Corner was quite wide and still is. It's unaltered. And then down on the TT course from Signpost down through and missing the dip out. It was good. Yeah, I feel quite nostalgic now.
And then you did mention, Roy, sadly, she in 58 it was the Czech Grand Prix. It wasn't even a championship event. Both of them lost their life, didn't they?
Did, yeah.
Which is
really sad. Dear me, the old nursery hotel, and then what all that produced later on, and her there, and the different things, and the controversy about ladies being involved. She was a pioneer.
She was. She was. So, boys, I'd like to move on to the goddess of the gas pedals, Miss Beryl Swain. So,
as well.
My year as well, is it?
She raced in 1962, 50cc item. She was 22nd, I think. Am I right there?
She wasn't last.
No,
she definitely
she was
wasn't last.
22nd.
Yeah.
She had a blue jumper on over her leather. So she was very attractive as well. She was another blonde lady. And it was only the once that she raced, I think, wasn't it? And then there was a bit of a hoo-ha over that, and the women were prevented from solo competition for a long time after that. There's the jumper.
There's the
Look
jumper.
at her hair. Wow, that's not helmet hair at all, is it? Stunner.
And was that bright yellow, was it, Roy?
Yeah, yellow tank with big stars on it.
Yeah, I never seen a colour picture, but I heard about that, you know.
The first time I saw that, I was between Quarterbridge and Braddon on where the Douglas rugby field is now, eagerly awaiting to see for the first time ever 50 cc's. And God, you felt as though you could jump over the hedge and run alongside the later riders who were on the likes of the item and all that. But she was a star down at Brands Hatch and the club racing round there. She was no duck egg, like as regards things. She was well qualified to compete. And she did very well, really. But, you know, I mean, Mike Hailwood started his career on an item, 50cc, as did Bill Ivey, I think. But certainly they were flat out all the way. And when you heard the works bikes, the Suzukis, and at that particular time were right up there amongst it on the two strokes, there was a vast difference.
Within a couple of years, the 50cc class kicked off big time, didn't it, with the international scene? That's when you seen the vast difference between the top works bikes and the likes of what Beryl was riding at that time. There was a massive difference then. But again, she was just before my time. All I can do is read about these people. Far too young for the conversation.
I'm just going to share some comments, boys. We had a good evening from Phil Bayliss. Also, we've got Millie Scale says, these two are so interesting. I agree, Millie. We've got William Wallace, hello, says, hi from the Scottish borders, home of Hizzy. John Theobald says, brilliant to hear these voices again. I agree. And Daniel Ferguson says, absolutely love listening to these boys' stories of behind the scenes at the TT. What they don't know is not worth knowing. The encyclopedia of the TT. Yes, boys. Brilliant.
Well, we try hard, don't we?
So there was a quote related to Beryl, and it was a reporter discussing her involvement in the sport. And quote, it says, women, the weaker sex, are muscling in on a man's domain. Practically no sport is sacred. So
you're absolutely
I don't
right.
think he welcomed her in.
Yeah. When you think, you know, it would be like a kind of more modern kind of interpretation of say, Inga Stahl and Beryl Swain and infiltrating into motorcycling is when, I mean, I still can't comprehend women boxing. I just don't see any right or reason in that. I mean, there's some ugly critters that do it, like there's not many good looking ones, but that could be part of the sport.
Could end the egg back Saturday night and see women boxing all you want to.
Yeah, could well be. It used to be up the money. Quite
Probably was, yes.
Bit of a dispute in Williston. You look at my woman, and that's the next thing. Yeah, away you go. That's not part of TT history, though.
Well, here we go.
This is Beryl Swain, yeah. Yeah, they're getting, I think, what was the situation on this? This was a bit of a movie that kind of promoted it.
I think that's Brands.
Yeah, I think it's Brands Hatch.
Brands Hatch. I think it's called Girl Racer, but it looks so good, doesn't it? So good. Look at that bike. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it was affordable racing as well. You know, you could buy a road bike and just do a few little bits to get it there.
Hey, this is good, isn't it? I have seen it before, but just seeing it in there.
It's a big field as well.
Yeah, oh, that's it. And they're racing, aren't they?
Yeah.
They are actually racing, yeah. That's not changed much at Brands Hatch, has it? Going round 30s and the left-hander there. Yeah. Fred Clark will be doing the commentary, probably.
Yeah. We're not allowed to. It might cut us off if we use the sound, so we just got to admire the visuals. But so just before we move on, it's crazy to think that she had the sports governing body revoked her international license because of the uproar of her taking part in the racing. It's completely insane, isn't it?
It was different days, but that went on for minutes after that. I mean, if you go to the mid-70s, the great Peter Williams married Tom Heron's sister, Andrea Williams. She was keen to race on the TT course, but she came up against authorities and they said, no, we don't allow females to race on the mountain course. But she was a very competitive racer all over England. And she maybe did the Irish road race as well. It took a long time for attitudes to change. For now, of course.
Yeah. I wonder, what would be... Yeah, when you think, I'm just kind of gone a bit blank here now. I can quite happily talk about Inga Stahl and Beryl Swain. And then you're thinking, well, who on earth would be the pioneer of kind of ladies racing? Who made the breakthrough?
Well, I can tell you that, but Hailey may come up with another name, which could be that very name, for all I know. Who's next?
Yeah, we've got Hilary Musson is the next one. So, obviously, Hilary was like 70s, 80s, wasn't she? Now she's. I know, Roy, when we chatted about her yesterday, I think it was.
Yeah,
she's made quite the impact, but she's. Look at that lady there. She's so she was 1978 was accepted to ride in the World Championship Formula 3 TT. But basically she followed in the footsteps of Beryl Swain, took part in the early 60s, and there had been a ban on the ladies, and then she was one of the first to then come through. Correct me if I'm wrong, boys.
No, I'm blank.
The Formula 1, 2 and 3, which came into the TT from 77 onwards, was initially like sort of a one event world championship, if you like. So I know that Hilary was very competitive in likes of Cadwell, Carnaby Place, like that. I think she did a thing called the Avon 250 Production Championship. She did really well on that. So she was eligible to do the TT. She couldn't do the Manx. She was allowed to do the TT then, but the Manx Grand Prix still said no for several years after that. But Hilary and her husband John both ended the same year. It says on the bike there, Marine Parade Peel, like a Marine House, Marine Parade. I remember them staying down there, actually. And I remember getting Hilary's autograph. And it was many years later I got to know Hilary and John quite well. And, of course, their daughter, Gail, raced in Manx Grand Prix many times after that. So it's very much a family thing. Great to see a picture of Hilary on there, actually.
Yeah, really
she's watching, she'd be very pleased with that.
Yeah. When we were doing the list, she was an automatic first, to go on it. But now, kind of, when you've explained that era, she probably would be the first one. The Manx Grand Prix, God dear me, they wouldn't even have ladies at their dinner. It's not the case now, but they were a male-dominated concern.
Very much so. And even pit attendants, we were saying that last time about Bob Simmons' late wife. She was the first ever pit attendant. And she said, well, look, I always do the pits for my husband wherever we go. And it was, no, you can't. It's men only. And then eventually, I think it was 1975, they said, well, okay then. And of course, once the floodgates were open, because there were many females that went all over the country with their husbands or boyfriends doing just that job. And fortunately, as time went on, a few of those decided to compete themselves, not just in sidecars, but solos.
Well, she was quoted, Hillary, I think this is really lovely. She says, one of her most treasured possessions, apart from her finisher's medals, is a tape recording of her father talking to Mike Hailwood on BBC Radio Phone-In 1978, 79. When he asked what he thought of women in the TT, he responded by saying he had watched Hillary up on the mountain and was very impressed.
Well,
that's good, isn't
it's
it?
quite a good reference, really, isn't it?
Exactly.
Get higher than that, could you?
No.
We just, there's another aside to it. When you're talking about Mike Hailwood being watched up on the mountain, it's not lady related, but Stanley Woods, who was 10 times TT winner, had watched Mike Hailwood himself, and he made a statement which is on one of the Schofield records, I think, that he saw in Mike Hailwood the potential of going to be a superstar, but in his Irish way had said, I've been up on the mountain today watching Mike Hailwood. It's going to take a very good man to hold a candle to him.
That's right.
And nobody knows what holding a candle to anybody is in relation to, it's a compliment, obviously, but Jeff Cannell used to kind of go over and over that. Was it something that we always kind of dropped in along with the no limit stuff about it'll take a man, even at the golf, take a good man, hold a candle to him, and it was just one of those things. Of course, Hillary is a local resident now, and a contributor to our group and helped us out with a few names as well.
She has, yeah. They were from Grimsby originally before they moved here. Market traders, I believe. They had a market stall at that time. Like I say, I got to know them after that. But every year in the formula races, Hillary and John usually started one behind the other, sort of thing. Or they maybe started together because they started in pairs at that time. It was usually John and then Hillary. I thought one is going to go past them. There, and then, like I say, Gail came on the scene and did very well.
800 mile an hour on a 125.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. All right, so remember, everybody, feel free to fire your questions at the boys, TT related, classic, Manx Grand Prix. Get involved in the conversation. We love to hear from you, and make sure you're sharing it with your friends as well. Please do send the link out and get them to join in the conversation as well. So our special this evening, then, we are focusing on the ladies of the TT, and I have to move on to, boys, Jenny Tinmouth. Well, so current, that's for you then, Barry.
Still the fastest lady ever on the course, 119.98.
Yeah, fraction under the 120.
It was about the Jeff Duke 100 miles an hour lap, wasn't it? When it 99.97.
Yeah.
And so it's as good as a 120 lap to me. A great racer, very modest. I never really met the girl, to be honest with you, but I saw her around. I heard a few interviews and that. She hasn't been for a number of years, and I think that's because her sponsorship was mainly geared towards British Championships and things like that. Lots of people have said it would be great to see her back on the TT course. Whether that can ever happen, we don't know now at this point. But completely professional, yeah. It's great on the bike.
So that was 2010, I think, because she broke the record. She set the... she pushed, because it was Maria Costello, wasn't it? She was holding the record. Then Jenny took it 2009, and then she smashed her own record in 2010. And I believe this picture's from that year.
But she went super all of a sudden, yeah.
I had the unenviable task. Well, fair comment. When I was working for a living many years ago, I worked for Manx Class, and the boss, Greg Turner, he was a good sponsor of Jenny Tinmouth and still is, I think, at PSP. She had a big off at Oulton Park last week, and the arrangement with her sponsor is that she fixes the bike, and it went tumbling down somewhere at a big rate of knots. So she's got it all back together and probably will be out this weekend, but it was a major task. But I had a little bit, she would be popping in when she was over, and I think she stayed with my boss at the time, Greg, and very, very modest. Just you hardly get a word out of her. But I had the unenviable task of doing a Joey Dunlop's dinner, which is usually in early January. And they'd invited Jenny Tinmouth and Maria Costello to the event. And I was the man in the middle trying to be diplomatic about Maria Costello, you would have to say, would be a bit more forceful in her opinion than her kind of attitude to everything. And then this lady comes along quite unassuming and kind of sticks another 5 or 6 mile an hour on her outright lap record for a lady round. And yeah, it was interesting, but they were good. They were good conversationalists. And the claws were out once or twice, but we got away with it.
So she's been Jenny's been the first for many things in women's in the sport. So she's got first female racer in the World Supersport, first to enter multiple classes, first British Superbike female team owner. She's obviously got multiple Guinness World Records. She's incredible, isn't she? And like you say, she's so humble. She seems to be very humble and very grounded, doesn't she?
Oh yes, very, very quiet, very, very modest, but just does it on the bike, which is the best way, really.
There was a couple probably that you would say before Jenny came along, and even Maria, who stood out. Sandra Barnett, she was quick, and then there was Kate Parkinson, was it?
Kate Parkinson,
yeah,
yes,
she was. They were really neat. It took a bit of how can you say, converting to kind of watch them after you'd watched Battle Swain, and then one or two others who were there, of like kind of really quick ladies who were neat and tidy, and they were all unassuming the same way, but they were mainly in the Grand Prix. But Sandra Barnett came in straight to the TT, I think.
I think Sandra done the Manx.
Did she?
Once or twice, because didn't their husband win the newcomers? Pete Barnett.
Ah, he did, yeah.
He won that. Because I remember even when I was doing the Manx, Sandra's bike was always first at the streets to go out, all polished up by 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Very professional. And she just got quicker and quicker, went on to the TT. Was she about 12th in the junior TT, something like that?
She did very
well.
well.
She had a really good result in the junior.
I think it was a case you were mentioning before about ladies who possibly, well, I don't think they would, but getting ahead of the men. And when you finish 12th in a TT, you are right up there amongst it. And I think she started somewhere like in amongst, it wasn't seeded starting then, it was kind of quickness, and she was well up there amongst it, maybe starting 36, 37, but she held her own right through the race and finished ahead of some, known quick fellas.
And she looked steady as well. She wasn't on the limit anywhere. She looked actually quite unspectacular, but she was right up there. Sandra Barnett. Kate Parkinson as well, great rider on 250s. Only 250. Well, she had a 400 Kawasaki in the early days, but there were quite a few starting to come good at that time. Just going back to the after Hillary, I don't know if you have any more names there, Hailey, but the trying to say who was the first female rider in the Manx Grand Prix, it was a funny one because there was a lady who we remember racing up in Yorkshire, Liz Skinner. She was from Chester. She wanted to do the Manx, and she wasn't allowed to do it. This was as late as 1988, but she entered the production TT on the bike she would have used in the Manx. After having done that, she was then allowed to do the Manx. If you follow me, if you'd done the production TT, you could do the Manx as well in those days. But another lady called Gloria Clark entered the Manx in that first year. So because Gloria done the newcomers, I think I'm right in saying this, Gloria done the newcomers race, which is on the Monday or whatever, and Liz's race wasn't until maybe the Friday, Gloria effectively was the first female in the Manx kind of a thing. And then once them two had done it, there was quite a lot. I mean, it's once you make a list like Roy's been doing, which I've been contributing to, it's amazing the names that come back from the past, and right up to modern day. There's so many.
We've got Ian Anthony Huntley here. Said, don't forget Margaret Lingen. Lingen.
She was a German lady. I remember doing 97 miles an hour about 30 odd years ago. Big, tall lady. And did she have a finger amputated or something like that? Ian would know the stories. There was one of her fingers was missing from not necessarily a bike accident, but something that happened to her. I remember seeing her in the paddock and looking for this lack of a finger. Sort of. She was a great rider. I think Ian actually helped Margaret Lingen. And I think Ian actually was quite good to help several of the female competitors over the years. There's been a few photographs of him helping out, which he maybe still does. I don't know, but he was around. Yeah, she was a great rider. Maybe did it a couple of times and disappeared. I don't know with some, if it's just something that you do. You want to do the Manx or the TT, and then once you've achieved that, you go on and to other achievements, whether it's in racing or whether it's in business or just family life generally. Or you could be like us, stuck with it all your life.
Yeah.
We've got Graham Clutterbuck says, great to see the ladies getting some proper recognition. Yeah, agreed. It's good. All suggested by the boys. Now with Jenny, we did just show a picture of her there. She was involved in stunt riding as well. So she was on Mission Impossible doing. So she's dipping, putting her fingers in all sorts of pies. But yeah, great role model, I think. Really great role model for the sport.
Agree.
Really important. Yeah.
We did have a couple of local interests as well, which surprisingly arrived. I don't know whether we had any sidecar passengers prior to that, but Pam Cannell and Monica Flooding, they got entries for the Grand Prix, didn't they?
Well, they were the best of friends, weren't they?
They were,
and they
close,
competed the same year. Yeah,
they did.
I suppose the thing about this is we have to be very careful who we don't mention.
Yeah.
Because if you mention maybe 24 different lady riders, but you miss one out, it might be what was.
We'll have to come back and do another one, Barry. We'll have to come back and acknowledge them all, won't we?
Yeah.
I hope we're going to get Carolyn Sells in, Ali, as the only winner around the TT Mountain Course. So that would be a bit. And then we can have a quick trip through the list, really, that we've got here.
Yeah, go for it. Please do, Roy. Go for it.
Well, we put them in no particular order of solo lady competitors who have practiced or started a race at the TT or Grand Prix and also competing on the mountain course. Beryl Swain, Carolyn Sells, Liz Skinner, Jenny Tinmouth, who we've mentioned, Maria Costello, who we've mentioned, Shelley Pike, I think was classic. No, she was Manx Grand Prix. Marie Hodgson, who was a local lady. From Tommy Duncan, who was a sidecar driver, and that was his daughter. And she married a fella called Hodgson, obviously, because she's now Marie Hodgson. But she holds a unique thing that she did the TT course as a fundraiser on a pair of roller skates. And we often mention that in commentary. Regular down the Southern 100 and Manx Grand Prix. Jane Swindle, Sandra Barnett, we've mentioned, Kate Parkinson, Gloria Clark, and Pam Cannell. And Hilary Musson we've mentioned, as well as Gail Musson. Anne Griffiths is in there amongst them. Monica Flooding, good friend there of Pam Cannell's. Anita Buxton, Gabrielle Byrne, Kay Street, Ellie Forrest, Margaret Lingen, that Ian Huntley has mentioned, Bridget McManus, Jane Parrott. Now, Barry got that one. It was a New Zealand lady, but we'll just complete it and then maybe go back to that. Virginia Power, Simona Zaccardi, Sarah Boys, who's still competing, and we had a little photograph that cropped up today that she might be on the Kramer for next year. Veronica Hankakova, or Koiva, and she to you. They
I love your pronunciation of that, but I don't know how to pronounce it either, so I can't really say to you.
Well, don't be too critical. Harry Jones, Ali Foster, she was a Manx Grand Prix. And then there was a very attractive Italian lady came over called Francesca Giordano. I think that's how you
I can tell you a story about her.
Well, just wait till I finish.
Yes.
Just wait till I finish my thing, because we know a few things about that as well. But then there was Philippa Wheeler and Yvonne Montgomery. And I don't think we've had any more additions to the solo lady riders than that. So you can't say now that we haven't mentioned you.
Thinking also. No, I was running a road bike in one time, which was going to be raced. And it was in May. I was going round and round at 50 miles an hour, as you do. It's very embarrassing. And, you know, and then obviously a female passed me and at about the same speed. She passed me very slowly and smiling and just up the road. She was stopped at the roadside, but I carried on because I was so embarrassed. And then eventually we both stopped in the same place. And she said to me, I'm running this, it was in 250 Aprilia. And she said, I'm actually racing in the TT. I thought, oh God, here we go, because you get these stories. But when I quizzed her, she said her name was Simona Zaccardi, and she was going to be racing TT that year. So I said, well, I might have read about you somewhere. But I said, nice to meet you, fair play. And then I seen her in the paddock TT week, and she remembered that, you know. But we were both embarrassed having to run a bike in at such a low speed. That was the point. Yeah.
Was there anything further in this story?
No.
It's the whole of the show. We've got a couple of comments here, boys. Did you forget Maria Clark, who passengered for Jed Tennant?
Yeah,
I got that.
This was for solos. I mean, there is about 60 to 70 females who have passengered.
There's lots and lots.
Yeah,
there's more names of female passengers coming up by the hour. I've just thought of a couple even today.
Yeah, you know. Well, we'll just have to. We'll do more because we want to cover them more. Daniel Ferguson says, would Julia Bingham be the last female competitor passenger, or the only to stand on the podium in the TT, not the Manx Grand Prix?
Well, of course, Rose Arnold, as she was in 1968, was the first female passenger to stand on the rostrum with Norman Hanks. But she didn't marry Norman. She married Roy, didn't she? Am I right? Yeah. She was the first lady to stand on the rostrum. Julia Bingham did years later. The first year the Binghams actually entered the TT, I was up at Bedside Corner watching practice, as I always did. And I remember this outfit come down the road, and all of a sudden, at the vital moment, the passenger fell out of the outfit and somehow got trapped underneath the sidecar and got dragged down the road. It was only when we checked the number we realised it was a lady passenger and a newcomer. And it was Julia Bingham. This is 1978, and there was some tense moments while we waited to see what happened. But the story the marshals were telling was two elderly marshals who dealt with her and had to carry her all the way down to the nuke on a stretcher because there was no helicopter. Well, it was a helicopter, but it wasn't called for. But the time these two marshals came back, they looked like they needed the helicopter themselves. But they were saying, as they gingerly lifted the outfit up this rider, fearing the worst, this female voice said, I haven't got a bra on, you realise that? Right? Anyway, I think the very next night she was back out again, and then the following year, they really improved dramatically. And like I say, she probably one of the unluckiest crews never to win a TT. They were always up there, the Binghams. Don't know where they are now, but fondly remembered, certainly.
Yeah, very much so. No wonder they looked worn out when they got back.
We've got Nicola. Nicola Wood is saying hi. Bazza B says good evening, everyone. He's a little bit late to the party, but he's happy to listen to us. And we've got one more. Come on, Andy Pike saying evening, guys. Feel a little bit closer to TT 2021 now. And Steve Gray says, what a pair of characters these pair are. Legends, I would say. And Miles Corlett says, hats off to Roy and Barry. The pair of them will have forgotten more than I'll ever know. And Andy Griffiths Remember Gloria Clark and Liz Skinner? Yes. So before we sign off, boys, I do want to go back to Maria Costello, if you don't mind. So we have to what she's achieved. She's MBE now, of course. We've got some pictures of her receiving that. So she's had a good old go at 2, 3, and 4-wheel racing, but she's made quite an impact on the TT, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's been choosing my words carefully, been around a while, hasn't she? She came on from the Manx to the TT, and she's done lots of other things. The sidecar idea, in fairness, hats off to her. That was something completely different, and she seems to go very well.
Lady passenger from the Isle of Man.
Did Maria Costello come off of the bottom of Bray Hill one time, Roy?
Got me on that
years
one.
ago, she actually did, yeah, a long time back. Again, I've never actually met the girl, I must admit, but she's always been around, and she's been in lots of races I've been in. It's just I just never actually got this to talk to her. But that's riding the pattern there now. She's very quick bite the pattern, and she's a little slip of a girl, so she was at the great advantage.
So she's the first woman solo racer in Isle of Man race history to stand on the podium when taking third in the ultra lightweight in 2005 Manx Grand Prix.
Yeah.
I was up to Craig that day. Remember that day.
We had probably had the privilege of doing the commentary on that as well, and certainly when you think back of being involved in the commentary with Carolyn Sells as win as well. We've done the ladies quite proud, really, just being in the right place at the right time. As I say, that night at the Dunlop dinner, it was a bit tense, but we managed. She's tough cookie, really. We did get a book through the automatic system and went through it, and she's had pretty hectic life, really. Like kind of bred into it, really, by being a motorcyclist when it wasn't acceptable as a girl in the days, and then sticking at it, really.
Do you remember, Roy, when Maria first did the Manx Grand Prix? Actually, she was in a team with another lady called Bridget McManus, and they both had the letters they had were like sort of red and white squares, kind of a thing, and they both did well. But Bridget McManus done 105, I think, as a newcomer in the senior race or something like that. But she disappeared from the scene altogether. I don't know where she ever went to. But Maria kept going from that. But there are some photographs of the two of them together in the paddock.
No, there we go. It's the gooseneck. Yeah, that's Julie keeping the chair wheel down.
Yes. Julie Canopy. Well, she's a postie, isn't she?
She is.
Well, not a postman, a post person.
Post person. Yeah.
I tried to get her on the show, actually, but she's busy with family life and staying at home, etc. now. So,
well,
pardon?
Was she on the Peel lifeboat years ago?
Possibly.
A long time ago now.
Yeah.
Back when I used to work in Peel and I knew all the skeet, I'm pretty sure she was involved with the lifeboat.
So how tough, how big a mission is it for you to transition from a 2, 3, even to 4 wheels, do you think? Like, for anyone trying to do that focus from the 2 even to the 3, and to be running the 2 at something like the TT as well, or the Manx Grand Prix, it's insane commitment, isn't it?
I would say it's a big undertaking. Years ago, it probably happened more because of his fellas, even right back in Freddie Dixon's day, back in the 20s, would think nothing of doing the solo and the sidecar. It was just what you did. And then they might have been doing scrambles and trials and things as well. Nowadays, it's like two different sports, I would imagine. All your lines are different, your techniques are different. It wasn't something I particularly ever really fancied myself. I say hats off to anybody who does it. It's a big challenge, and she's done very well. There's a lad I know, Michael Russell. He also has taken up sidecar racing after a very successful solo career, and he's going well too.
The big one was Michael Dunlop and Dan Sale. Went to Oliver's Mount and kind of were up there amongst it, but unfortunately that didn't materialise. I don't know for what reason, maybe the expense or the commitment when you take on a solo contract. And
it's trying to keep all the sponsors happy, I suppose. If you've got a hat full of top line solo sponsors and you announce you want to race sidecars, it might not go down too well.
One thing about Maria, she's not short of sponsorship.
Yeah.
Certainly she gets a fair, and she does them proud with photographs and stuff like that. Well, we've got to mention Carolyn, haven't we?
I was just going to move on to that, because we've got a few comments here, so that leads us in very well. So we've got Carolyn Sells. I stopped at the, it is Carolyn. I stopped at the hairpin to talk to Roy in the ultra weight Manx Grand Prix 2005. Bloody broke down.
And came in, had a word with us, and one of those kind of special moments, isn't it? I now realise what ladies wear under their leathers, just because of the situation that occurred in the commentary box. But it doesn't bother me now. I've probably been about 65 years of age at the time, so thoughts suddenly disappear. Maybe looking at Ingrid Stahl in 54, 55 might have just set me off on the train, but certainly at 65 and onwards, you're not too bothered. But she was good to do it, good to get in.
Good job you were at Marshall and when Julia Bingham crashing, isn't it?
I could well be.
Very exciting.
That would be in the end of it.
But look, Carol too has come up through the 400s, the 600s. She's always acquitted herself well on what bikes she's had, and very approachable as well. It's good to see her on yapping over the Manx there.
Yeah.
Yeah, much now. She's living out in the sticks, I think, is she these days?
Foxtel,
yes.
Foxtel.
She did Jim's. Oh, yeah, Foxtel. She did Jim's Manx Grand Prix celebration, I think, didn't she? I think she did it on an electric bike. Is that right, Carolyn? I think she went around the TT course on an electric bike.
She was celebration, yeah. She was yapping in the Crosby Hotel with a lady whose name I forget.
Helen. Yeah. Brilliant.
Again, it was a privilege to be involved in that commentary when she actually won. Again, I took a photograph the other day, and I wouldn't have a clue what year it was. 2008?
2005.
No, that was
here? Oh no, that was when she broke down. Sorry, yeah.
And she won 2008 or 9.
2008.
I should know because it's about somewhere. But we had a bit of information, and people get the wrong thing. She won that race, irrespective of what happened during the race. It was a kind of a move. Bob Jackson had done it in the TT, and it nearly worked for him. And others had tried doing non-stop in the race, and she made sure that she was going to go through 4 laps. But we've mentioned it a couple of times, and people think that you're saying, yeah, she only won because she had the big tank on. You get all their times together, and certainly she just seen them all off on that particular occasion. And it was one of those things that once the race had started, we were able to say, I don't think Carolyn Sells will be stopping for fuel, but it didn't make any difference. She saw everybody off that day, and the following parties at the Manx Grand Prix dinner with James Roseland and various other things. There's photographs flying around about that, and it'll be one of my lasting memories anyway of being involved in a bit of TT mountain course history.
I was in the pits that day with somebody else when Carolyn got the check flag, and I can still remember now when she came up the return lane and she was getting pushed into the winner's enclosure and she dropped the bike on its side. It was just all excitement and adrenaline. It was brilliant. Bit of Manx Grand Prix history.
Love it, Carolyn. Thanks for joining in the conversation. It's brilliant. And we've got just a little comment from Bazza B before we have to close off, boys. Don't know whether it's been brought up already, but Carrie Dixon daughter of Carrie Dickinson, did the TT course on a push bike a couple of years back and raised money for charity.
She did indeed, yes.
She did, yeah. Remember that well. Yeah.
And we have Tracy Harrison. Don't forget, Julie Canepa had a little off at Sarah's, and first thing she wanted to know was, did you get that?
Tracy Harrison misses nothing at Sarah's.
No.
Always been there.
And her dad before that,
Yes.
her dad was not sector marshal. It was his domain, Sarah's cottage, and was for many years. And I can't for the life of me think, God, what was this? It wasn't Harrison because she's married. Killia. Yeah, a good old Manx name, Killia. That downhill skier, John Claude Killia.
That's right, yeah. Well, I stopped there once or twice with newcomers. You know, we always park up there and have a walk up and down the road and show the lines. And Tracy appeared from nowhere with a camera out of sight. Who's this, you know? And it's nice to get those pictures because nobody else would ever take those.
Love it. Brilliant. Thank you, Tracy. So, boys, thanks again. Love that show. I want to do more about these ladies of the TT for sure. We're going to have you back again soon. Fingers crossed. Thanks again. It's been an absolute pleasure. And Roy, thanks for bringing the ladies of the TT to the show, really. Really appreciate it. So have a nice evening, boys. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and joining the chat and the conversation. Remember, this is available on replay. If you know anyone that might enjoy it, please share it, like it, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It'll help us grow it and help us provide even more content for you. So, Roy and Barry, absolute pleasure. Take care of you, and we'll see you very soon.
Cheers.
Thank you, boys. Thank you, everyone. This was Revved Up and Relived on the Spirit of Motorsport TV. We look forward to you riding with us again soon.
Bing, 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 bing. You go,